So when you're mulliganing here, do you dump the Shade now, seeing as you've got Wild Growth? You're going to go straight Wild Growth into Shredder, or you just keep the entire hand?
I mean, it's one of your early minions. I think you just keep it. You're not really going to get much else. I mean, but Living Roots off the top, it's not really going to get much better. That is pretty much
nice
your perfect curve. I mean, you don't have to worry about the Shade. You can just play Shredder on turn 4 because of the Wild Growth.
My issue with the Shade into Rogue is you do become susceptible to things like Empowered Fan of Knives or, Blade Flurries, which we all know that the Rogue does have on hand.
Especially if you leave those Shades in stealth mode. We see these Shades so often just left to become like a 6/6 when I really just want to see them using them as like a 3/3 or a 4/4.
Interestingly enough, Sottle made a tweet about this. He said, why do people always leave their Shades stealthed at this stage in the game? You just realistically should be using them ASAP.
Yeah, it's like, if you can find it... The way to think about it for me... Wow, that's some... those are some real emotes right there. I think the way to think about Shade is kind of, this is a 2-mana minion. If I can get a good trade out of this and it still be on the board, then it's already paid its value. So
here you have the option, right? Do you coin... This would be the play I would make. I would coin Violet Teacher, prep, Deadly Poison, kill the 4/3. You are playing into Swipe, but you do start to gain some tempo. Or you can just simply say Deadly Poison, or redagger Deadly Poison, deal with the Shredder now. So I guess those are the two plays I would have in mind here.
And this is so often a decision is, do I want to play into Swipe? But you have to kind of hedge your bets and say, are they going to have Swipe this early on? The longer I leave this play to happen, the more likely they're going to have this Swipe in hand.
I mean, the thing in my brain that goes around is like, they've had the perfect curve already. How can they have any more answers?
To be fair, I'm sure Sottle will be thinking, yep, he's definitely got a Swipe. He's probably got a Shade in there. And I mean, the emotes coming out of Osha as well, and he knows that Sottle can, I don't want to say go on tilt, but I mean he's known for getting quite frustrated with cards not going his way, and if you can get in the head of any player, it's always going to give you a big advantage. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Squelch came out from Sottle. He does often say he wishes there was an auto Squelch button.
Sottle, the UK Reynad.
That is a pretty good description, actually. I'll give him that.
So you can prep sprint this turn, but you do lose a little bit of tempo on board. But you do have things like the Azadrake and Sludge Belcher next turn. No, he wants to make sure he's dealing with stuff right now.
So he can clear the board with Blade Flurry.
Yeah. And that's why I don't like keeping Shade for some reason against... I guess you've got to play it at some point.
Yeah, and you'd rather... Again, it's just... Are you expecting the Blade Flurry in their early hand or in their late game hand? You've just got to try and... just
and as well, you are getting rid of the Blade Flurry, so I mean it's going to come out at some point, so why not now? But here we go. Another Shredder going to come out, as you said. Going to just smack him in the face as well. But here we go, turn 5. Sludge Belcher as a Drake. What do you guys reckon?
Sludge Belcher. It's the perfect answer to a piloted Shredder because you don't trade into it and you lose your piloted Shredder regardless. Dr. Boom here is pretty good though.
I want your opinion. What is your opinion on sapping a Dr. Boom?
I hate it, but I feel like you have to do it in some situations, right?
In this one?
I feel like you have to.
There's no real... Well, there isn't any way you can actually remove it.
You could sack the piloted Shredder. No, there's still no way.
The only thing I dislike about sapping a Dr. Boom is
just
you just boom bots. They're probably just going to play it again next turn.
But you are losing tempo. You're taking a 7/7 off the board for 2 mana. They have to play another 7 mana to put another 7/7 on the board. But yeah, I think I don't like sapping a Dr. Boom. But then what are you going to sap in a Druid, really?
You want that sap kind of nice and early after they've innovated out something.
Exactly. You need that sap early. It's less effective later on.
It could be, I mean, we talked earlier about how Ancient of War is sometimes thrown into decks like this. Sap would be fantastic for just removing that later on in the game, but Boombot hitting for 2 onto the Azure Drake there.
There's options here. You could just Force of Nature, you could swipe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, having both Force of Natures in hand, you can use one of those for removal.
And Wrath for 1, baby.
This is looking strong, and we already see Sottle kind of shaking his head, rolling his eyes a little bit. He will begin to get frustrated. Anyone would. I would as well. I'm not just saying just Sottle gets frustrated. Everyone does.
100%. You could have done that in 2 ways. As long as you weren't taking the 4 damage to face, you know, you could have queued that up in quite a few different
4
ways.
damage bomb as well. Sottle now down to 8 HP. It's not looking fantastic.
You have to sap and you have to Sludge Belcher.
Yeah.
I think that's the only play you can make here. Oh no, okay.
Interesting. So you're going to play the Sludge Belcher, I think it was. I always call it Sledge Belcher. I don't know why. I can't not.
The Sledge Belcher. I understand the backstab there. It's an absolutely fine play. He's reluctant. You don't want to put more boombots on board.
You're setting up for SI7 agent.
Yep.
But this is great because it stops the sprint coming out from Sottle. Sottle's going to be forced to play piloted Shredder SI7 agent, and that's only clearing the Dr. Boom, and then you're dead to Force of Nature next turn.
Yeah, this guy's you're right. Bang on the money right there, I'm afraid. I don't think there's a whole lot else to say about that one. Kind of unfortunate for Sottle. Can't get the sprint out in the end. I mean, there was maybe something to be said for playing the Azure Drake instead of the Shredder, but realistically, I don't think that makes a difference. Whatever you draw, you still don't have the mana to play it. So
exactly, because of the lower tab, what you're searching for with the Azure Drake, you can't play anything.
There was there was nothing Sottle could have done differently in that game that would have changed that outcome. The Druid just drew perfectly. That starting hand was just unbelievable. It happens with Druid sometimes, and I kind of feel for Sottle in that instance.
The only thing I was thinking about was maybe just going all in on a Violet Teacher play turn 3 with your coin Violet Teacher prep, Deadly Poison, take out the Shredder. We know there was swipe there. I mean, how much difference would it have made in the long run? But that swipe was so influential later on in the game, clearing that Azure Drake and that Sludge Belcher. Maybe having just gone all in on that play, forcing the swipe, which is off tempo for the Druid, might have been the play there. Just throwing that one out there, guys.
And this is the thing, it's really hard to say this would have been a better play because in that kind of scenario, it's so early on in the game. You don't know what the following turns entail. You don't actually know what's going to happen on the back of it. So, but it definitely would have caused a very different game. So it does bring the question of would that play have actually won him the game?
And everyone has different playstyles. I mean, what works in Kinnan's head might not work in mine, and that's what I love about Hearthstone. That's why I love watching Hearthstone. That's why I love casting Hearthstone. That's why I love playing Hearthstone. I just kind of love to see the differences from everyone, and that's what makes it interesting to watch. I think it's just the kind of decision making,
especially in Rogue as well. Rogue has so many. I love the way it's kind of a combo. It reminds me of other card games much more than a lot of the other decks do. But here we go. We're going to be moving into the second game of this series. So Druid already won for Osha, so he's 1-0 up in this series, looking to try and get his first win on the board, but it is going to be Paladin up against the Rogue now. So
this is an incredibly favoured matchup for the Rogue if it's Secret Paladin.
I'd assume it is.
I would also assume... Ooh.
It would be an egg, though.
Is this going to be Genie Egg Paladin, or is it just going to be Secret Paladin that has eggs in it? Eggs, it is an interesting
Could be a celebratory deck, because we've had Easter recently. Just throwing it in there, maybe.
Egg is a really interesting tech for me, by the way.
It is, because it answers perfectly to Rogue, actually.
It does, exactly.
Rogue gets the board clear, but then if you've got an egg on board, then instantly you get that nice, juicy 4/4 Nerubian.
Is this the influence of potentially Hello Leroy saying, I think Sottle's going to bring a Rogue again, maybe tech in some stuff?
Definitely. I mean, if Sottle had success with the Rogue last week, why wouldn't he bring it this week? There's no reason to not bring it.
And that's something we're getting to know Hello Leroy for, is the fact that he loves to play his decks around his opponents, and Osha is his teammate. So I think that's very, very likely the case on this one.
If anyone was wondering why Sottle attacked in turn 2 with the dagger, it was just simply because he wanted to check for Noble Sacrifice and get it procced for free. And you saw his reaction when it wasn't Noble Sacrifice. He wasn't too happy about it. It is a risk you take when you're running against the Secret Paladin, because that turn 1 secret could actually be anything.
And it's actually... getting your dagger can sometimes be, well, huge for Rogue, and that 2 mana can turn out to be just too much and it can be out of your reach. So using your dagger to kind of test anything is always feels bad, so it is unfortunate that it wasn't the secret there. But at least he then knows now that it's definitely not Noble Sacrifice.
I mean, what do you do now? Do you just dagger face and re-dagger?
Yep, and then maybe even Deadly Poison.
Just to have it up there.
Just to have it ready.
Yeah.
To answer any kind of board.
But then do you want to... you've got the backstab, so you can use that for a combo. You don't necessarily need to use the Deadly Poison.
Looks like that is going to be the play coming out, or at least re-dagger. Maybe not using the Deadly Poison just yet. So, interesting, he's going to hold on to that one.
Well, I mean, if you do use the Deadly Poison, then if you do have to trade with something that maybe perhaps you would just use a normal dagger for, it feels a bit awkward.
You're giving away that you have the answers for things like for instance, a piloted shredder if you deadly poison that turn.
Yep.
Double sap in hand though, that's a really good set of cards to have against the Secret Paladin.
Especially when the secrets drop and when the Avengers come out, if you can just sap a
mysterious challenger.
Well, not even a mysterious challenger, but if you've just got like a spider on board and suddenly it becomes like a 4/4 or whatever, then you can just sap it back. It just feels fantastic. So like we said, this is a good matchup for the Rogue. So it'll be interesting to see if Sottle can kind of get his neck back in this series.
See, I can put my hand up and say I just do not play Rogue. So when I'm thinking of plays that Rogues can make, they're definitely not the plays that an experienced Rogue player would be making. I imagine he trades in and hopes that SI7 trades with whatever pops out, though.
Or you just sap, this
the egg
back. That's exactly what I was saying earlier.
Oh,
but of all things,
oh no!
What a joke!
Oh my goodness!
He's just going to have to give away the sap. I mean, there's no other play there.
Sottle's unhappy right now. He is so unhappy.
I think he's beyond the point of unhappy there. That is just pure hilarity. It's so unfortunate, but it is one of the things that can come up.
That's kind of one of those moments where you either have to laugh or you can cry.
Or cry.
Those are your two options, because the odds are so slim on that happening. And as well, it just, when you're playing a deck that completely relies on combinations of spells, that is just... I mean, for those of you that don't actually know, I feel like we should show what Lorewalker Cho is. When you cast a spell, it's going to copy it so your opponent gets the spell as well.
Yeah.
I realize it's not actually a very meta card, so people that have just been watching competitive might not necessarily know it, but...
I'm just going to hover over it and you'll see. There you go.
So basically, when you're playing Rogue and you cast 3 spells a turn, if you give them those 3 spells, essentially.
And what's interesting is Osha has been hovering over this Blessing of Kings, so he will say, okay, I'll give you a Blessing of Kings, but I mean, what good is a Blessing of Kings going to do for this Rogue right now?
Exactly.
It's got a 4/8 Panda on the board.
It's a high-cost spell, but then we just know there's another sap on board, right? So he's going to have to spend mana to play Lorewalker Cho.
Anything you use to get rid of Lorewalker Cho, you give to your opponent as well. This is such a bizarre situation.
But I mean, against Rogue, the saps, okay, what are you going to use them for, really? Violet Teachers, maybe? But that would be nice to get back into your hand. You've got the Doctor Booms. But most of the stuff that you sap back to a Rogue, they can then use again. The combo effects, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, SI7 Agent, for example, if you sap this, you just give them another proc of 2 damage, which for a Rogue is fantastic.
The only thing is, for Rogue, is if he is running the oil variation and has no charge, and he gets oil onto a pretty useful target, now Osha has the tools to deal with a oiled up target.
Yeah, but most of the time you'd like to get that oil target on a minion that has the effect already that can be attacking. That's usually when you want to go for your combo. Sometimes it happens when you've got Violet Teacher on board and you'll drop that oil and it'll go onto one of the fresh 1/1s, and that always feels bad, and that is definitely a sap target, you're right.
But then, if your oil target does get sapped, you can always just Blessing of Kings something. So.
Because, you know, why not play a Paladin card as a Rogue?
That was really interesting, the Blessing of Kings there, because in my eyes, I would have just gone for 2/2 drops, played the egg and the shielded mini-bot again, and said, so if you're going to play any cards, you have to play cards now. I wonder how influential that Blessing of Kings is going to be versus
I wonder if the thought process was just, I want to make this bigger so you can't get rid of it, so I will get all of your spells. That must have been one of the thought processes. He must have just been hoping there wasn't a second sap on board.
I guess he's saying, I've got the sap, so if you do Blessing of Kings, then I can just sap your Blessing of Kings target.
Yep.
I've got double sap now, so... Do you just push face with this 3 damage on the deadly poison, or
do you run into the shielded mini-bot and then backstab? But you obviously know the secret is on board. You're going to be wondering what that secret is.
Don't really want to give him an avenge on an egg in case it is.
He has got the Keeper of Alderman.
You can Alderman the egg
onto his egg here,
and then you just get a 4/4 out of it for trading into the SI7 agent, and then maybe you just stick down Lorewalker Cho again. I think you just muted my one, buddy.
I need to cough.
Try now.
Okay.
I
feel better now. Why was that? I was trying to mute my mic, but
okay, interestingly, trading into the Azadrake, not into the SI7 agent.
I'm guessing he doesn't want the Azadrake to trade into the Keeper of Alderman and remain 1 health.
Or into the Nerubian, either.
Do you just Lorewalker Cho here, or do you just Haunted Creeper?
I love he's got Lord Walker Cho in.
I think
He's
I
got
think-
Lord Walker Cho and 2 saps in his paladin hand. It's just bizarre.
I think Lord Walker Cho is great here because the rogue loves to use spells to try and clear the board.
It's like, okay, turn 7, what are you going to do? Sprint? I don't think so, buddy. Oh, you can if you want to, if you want me to join in, but...
I can't think of anything worse than giving a secret paladin sprint.
Yeah.
If he sprints, he gets a full... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, if he sprints, he'll overdraw.
Yeah, so he'd have to backstab first.
So he'd have to backstab something as well.
I mean, you can just
the-
kill Cho, but the thing is, Cho essentially right now, for a rogue, just acts like a taunt. It's like Doomsayer. It's like adding 4 HP to your pot because he has to deal with that or he can't do anything.
What Sottle needs is the Blade Flurry. That is going to win him this game. If
Or
he can
an
get a Blade Flurry
Eviscerate.
soon, I mean, Eviscerate, yeah, that helps.
But you give it to your opponent, so...
Yeah, well...
This is why I love this Lord Walker Cho here, because now Sottle's got to make the decision of I either eviscerate a real threat,
Or we could
eviscerate
backstab it and give him a backstab.
Both of those are really spells that you don't want to give the paladin
Yeah,
for
so
free.
he might just have to use his face to
He
trade.
can use his face to
Chow,
trade
which
in,
does
yeah.
feel pretty horrible.
For some reason, I was not thinking about the dagger right there. Do you just eviscerate the... yeah, backstab and eviscerate the
Is he going
target.
to get it in time? Yes, he is. Good. He didn't rope. Solid turn there.
And he's going to be feeling much more comfortable with that board. Now there's, for the last time, no more Cho to deal with, so he's actually safe to play his combos.
The thing is, he does know that there are 2 saps in the hand of Osha.
Yeah. And you know for a fact Osha is just going to hold one of those saps until Kings comes out.
Yep, or the Tinker Sharpshot Oil. This was the obvious play, I think. We didn't even need to talk about it. You have Muster for Battle and you have Knife Juggler, so...
Yeah.
You,
A little bit unfortunate on the daggers, really.
And you don't really want to snap either of these back either.
I would say play... I don't know. I was going to say play your minion first because you have more of a chance of hitting a minion.
Never Lucky Baby Rage.
Never Lucky Baby Rage. That's what I thought. And now you don't. You trade. You're going to be so weak to Fan of Knives.
But there is no Fan of Knives in Sottle's hand. There's also no Blade Flurry at the moment.
just
There is
go
no
face?
answer.
Yeah, just go face.
Face is the place.
My issue with that play was, and this is a very, very minor issue, if you'd played your dude first, or your Haunted Creeper first, you had a 66% chance of hitting a minion, which meant that you could trade your face into one of those minions and then trade your 2/2 into the other one. This way round, you've given yourself a 50% chance to hit a minion. So it was just a slight misplay. I don't know how much effect it's going to have.
By the looks of Sottle's hand, not very much. I mean, what could you do? You could sprint for a prep into a Blade Flurry, but you don't have a dagger.
I'd say
This is a tough turn.
Violet Teacher, maybe Blessing of Kings, but then you're just going to get sapped.
And that Lord Walker Chow coming out of the Pilot Shredder is just completely flipped this game up onside its head. We said Rogue
That's
is
like-
favoured against the Secret Paladin, but
That is the worst card to have to deal with as a rogue. I can't believe how unlucky Sottle has been. He is going to use the sprint in the end.
we did say this is a battle of the unlucky players.
Yeah, next turn is a
Look
great
how many
turn.
cards are in Sottle's hand as well. It doesn't quite overdraw.
No, just the 9 at the moment. So it'll
If
be 10 after
Sottle
next
draws
turn.
a prep next turn, he's in great place. I'm trying to work out what type of paladin this is, by the way. We've seen secrets, but we haven't seen that many secrets.
Yeah.
So the bottom of his deck is just all the secrets and Mysterious Challenger, or
Okay, Sottle's got a fairly hefty hand here.
so he knows he can clear all these 1/1s if he wants to with his Blade Flurry, but you're pretty much dead.
Do you just sprint instead of conceding?
No, I
Go
think,
out in style.
I think you use the Eviscerate combo at some point, right? So you're going to play like a Violet Teacher Eviscerate, but you know that your 1/1s are just going to train to his 1/1s. You could play a
So you
Piloted
could-
Shredder Eviscerate.
You could dagger up, then you could
So many.
Dagger's 2
SI7
mana.
agent into the Haunted Creeper, then you could Blade Flurry, and then you could Eviscerate into the Nerubian. Is that enough mana? 3, 5, 7, 9. Yes, I think it is.
3, 5, 7,
Instead, he's going to go for the oil and the Blade Flurry, which I think is also fine because you can still clear board.
9. Yeah, that makes sense. And he's got a lot of singular target. You know, he's got threats in his hand. He's got Piloted Shredders, he's got Violet Teacher, and there's nothing really for... I mean, we know there's 2 saps still sitting, right? So how much time can Osha buy with these saps?
He couldn't have used the SI7 agent anyway because he didn't get the combo off it. So
Yeah.
I think that play was pretty spot on. There wasn't really much else he could have done. And he's still in a bad position though.
He really wants that fan of knives. That would give him such a nice time period. I guess here you can oh, that was ominous.
That was a nice explosion in the studio.
You can use the Paladin Shredder, you can SI7. You don't really want to SI7 the 1-2 if you don't have an answer for it though, do you?
You kind of
I wonder if this rogue
increase
is running Healbot. It was... When Rogue was huge in ladder, I mean a couple of seasons ago, there were Healbots in it, but from the rogues that I've seen on ladder this season and I've seen in tournaments, they've not really been using this Healbot.
So it's a... Okay, that's lethal right here.
There we go.
There we go.
Off the top. And a little laugh, little snigger there from Sottle.
Never
As
lucky.
Clown
Baby
Fiesta
rage.
game comes to the end.
It was okay. That was it. We've seen the opposite ends of the spectrum here for rogues across the 2 weeks. We saw the week where there was the fan of knives in hand directly for the Mustafa battle. Now we've seen the week where we have absolutely no AoE board clear for the rogue, and he just gets, well,
and has to deal with
metaphorically shafted by a panda that gives spells.
So, do you now just say, okay, look, I'm just gonna put my rogue to the side. I'm going to now play my other decks. I'll come back to that rogue later if I get the chance to. Or do you just go, no, I'm going to get this win
What's
right
his
now.
next matchup?
So I don't know what the final deck is. What the final champion is? It Druid?
Deck.
No, he's small.
Shaman. Is Shaman that's been left open? Oh no, that's Sottle. So there's
For
it's Warlock.
Mysterious.
I can't read this.
You
He's
can't
changed
read
the
it.
color scheme. It's terrible now. Okay, so I think it's Hunter versus Rogue now. Hunter is the final.
Hunter,
Oh,
okay.
Hunter. Okay.
So there's also a Hunter on Sottle's side as well.
So there is a few variations of Hunter we could potentially see.
Mech Hunter.
Yes, there's 4 variations then. There's the Camel
You won't see
Hunter.
it.
There's Camel Hunter, there's Mech Hunter, there's Face Hunter, and then there's that kind of mid-range Hunter that we saw last
There's Face Hunter and there's Mid-Range Hunter. I don't think that either of these players would play Camel Hunter. I don't think either of these players would play a Mech Hunter. Sottle definitely won't play. So it'll be Face Hunter.
Yeah.
I'm 99.8% sure.
The interesting thing with Face Hunter is if now that
That's
if
0.2%.
Osha's going into this matchup with Face Hunter, he's giving himself a darn good shot to take the series because you're hoping at least one of these 3 games you're going to get the cards that you need to win that Face Hunter.
Well, that's not been the case for him so far, but you could argue neither for Osha. So we'll have to wait and see as we head into the 3rd game of this series. Osha currently 2-0 up over Sottle, and he's looking to get himself away from being lonely all the way at the bottom of the scoreboard, and he's looking to
bring Sottle down with
Sottle
him.
down to the same point as him. So
Sottle is queuing up the rogue again. I would say that this is... I don't want to say that Sottle is a stubborn person, but he is going to want to make sure he gets a win with this rogue.
Yeah.
He says, I know this deck can win. I've been unlucky. That last game was just a joke. Let's get this win on the board, and I can kind of suss out my opponent, and then I can choose my next deck depending on what this guy's playing.
And you're just going to go web spin this turn.
So the web spinner would suggest maybe like you said, mid-range.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a hybrid. We saw Hybrid Hunter massive a couple of months ago. Well, if not, maybe 4 months ago.
I guess you got the answers on Sottle's hand now. Interesting enough, web spinners played in Camel Hunter and Mid-Range Hunter. I've not seen a lot of it in Face Hunter.
yeah.
But it does give you that opportunity to always have something in hand to proc the kill command with. And he's just going to coin out the SI7 and backstab here, so not even going to use his face with that dagger. And he's going to give himself every opportunity to keep board control here with some nice tempo play from Sottle.
I will say, Web Spinner is often seen in my Death Rattle Hunter,
Perhaps.
but it seems unlikely that they're going to be bringing that to a tournament.
RIP Undertaker.
The Pit Snake, though,
2015.
comes out and actually can be an incredibly good card
I-
if you can find the right target.
Not even that. It's a 1-mana kill command activator.
That's true, yeah.
It's just a 1-mana kill command activator. It is really good for the hunter.
And we can see that Sottle's got the Violet Teacher in hand. He's got the prep. He might have some spells that come in later. He can build up a little bit of a board. But we see the Unleash the Hounds on the other side, which can just respond with...
We also see the Houndmaster.
Yeah, so that would make me think that this is like the hybrid mid-range hunter.
Yeah. Preparation here. I think that's an Eviscerate. Yeah, there we go. Deals with Leok on board.
I am ready to learn.
And you get a couple of extra little 1/1s. Unless we see, do you think we're going to see Explosive Trap coming out in this deck? It's a very, very common card to run in. It's kind of one of the only clears really you're going to have available on Hunter.
And there we
Kill
see
command.
the 1 mana activator for the kill command,
Exactly.
as you did say.
There you go. And deals with that Violet Teacher. It's going to be Savannah High Main coming down, and there is no sap to talk of. And I think actually Sottle will be fairly surprised seeing this Savannah come down.
I'm not sure he will be after the
look like
web
a
spinner.
surprise to
I mean, that is definitely going to be in your mind. That it's probably more of a mid-range or hybrid hunter, as you like to say. I did say earlier I thought it would be face hunter, but that was from Sottle. I mean, I know him a lot better than I do Osha. So it is interesting that he's decided to bring a mid-range kind of hybrid hunter here. I'm just going to call it one or the other, mid-range. I'm going to call it a hybrid hunter because that was what it was when it was in the meta.
So there are options now for Osha. You could unleash the Hounds and then use the Hound Master on top of that. You could just lower Theb and Mad Scientist. That also works too. But we know that there's a perfect answer for an empty hand in the hand of Sottle, and it is that sprint.
I think Hounds and Houndmaster is, in my opinion, is a better play now. With only one card in the hand of Sottle, you don't want to use that lower theb just yet. I mean, if he did, he would have completely made that sprint irrelevant, but he obviously wouldn't know that that sprint is in hand.
You raise a valid point, my friend.
That I do. Tinkers isn't going to do much, so he is probably going to have to sprint here.
But you also then stop the sprint on turn 7 if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So it swings and roundabouts, right?
In hindsight, I actually really like the lower third last turn.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if they do have sprint, then I've just ruined their day.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking anyway, but
I mean, he can get some damage now, and then he can lower theb next turn to set up for lethal.
do you preparation sap something
I was just
here?
thinking this. I mean, you would surely do it on the Hound rather than the Hound Master, because you don't really want him to get that taunt out again later on.
Yep.
Because Hound Master is such a valuable card. When you're playing this kind of hunter deck, it's like, that can be the difference between winning and losing, and when you draw the Hound Masters, because it not only is it a 4/3 on the board, but also that buff is so powerful, and so many hunter cards can just become so much. I mean, like, Hound Master onto Savannah Highmane makes Savannah Highmane like the best hunter card.
I think Osha's about to ruin.
Yeah, this lower theb is really going to hurt, because, I mean, actually, I think Sottle would have lethal next turn. He'd be very close to it anyway, just from the top of my head, but that lower theb will pretty much secure this one.
And he's going to go face, and Sottle is nodding gently. He knows he's in a bad position here.
An impossible position,
Yeah.
I think. It's going to be the series, and that is pretty much Sottle's day, if not Sottle's kind of tournament summed up so far. And I think it was the right decision, just waiting and putting that low theb out when you are feeling threatened by
I
lethal.
definitely think now, given his hand, for sure.
Yeah.
It really depends on what the rogue drew from that sprint. But I think given... I mean,
either way, I think it probably
Yeah.
the low theb was just so key in this matchup that it would have won the game.
Either way, I think if he played it last turn, if he played it this turn, it actually probably would have had the same end result for the rogue, because the rogue only had Tinker's sharp sword and sprint in hand, so that would have been a literal pass turn from the rogue had that come down. And then the hunter had the opportunity to seek lethal the turn afterwards. So I think that's GG for... He's trying to work out if he just goes for a 7-mana sap on something, right, to keep him alive, but I don't think there's anything that can physically keep him alive in this situation, even if you sap the lower theb. That just gives him the opportunity to play it next turn, so...
Well, he doesn't even need to play it next turn, because you've still got 9 damage on board and about it, so... That is going to be the series going the way of Osha, and a 3-0 victory as well. So Osha reversing his seasonal score for the score of that game. So fantastic play from him, and he's going to be able to take the series and put himself on the board now. He's no longer just on his own in last place.
And the important thing is, like I said, he's now played all 4 of the invited players. The big